So hi, great to be here. But first, I feel like I need to say, just as like a first-gen, like British-born Nigerian, this really spoke to me. Like I felt like Tola was really, she got it. I felt like as she was experiencing like Lagos, I was experiencing Lagos. So I feel like I just need to kick it off with how did this all begin? Like the idea of Iwájú from like the start to like the final project. Like where did we begin?
Ziki had this idea for a few years before we actually spoke with Disney Animation. He had always wanted to tell a story about Lagos, and it's partly coming from the fact that he, for the first 15 years of his life, was in Lagos and then relocated to the UK and just had this urge to show his friends hey, this is where I come from, this is how it is, these are the differences, these are the quirks. So when we started speaking with Disney Animation, and they gave us the opportunity to pitch multiple stories. We pitched different stories, some set in, fictional Africa, fantasy. We pitched different things, but this was one of the ones we pitched. And because he saw an opportunity to say, like, okay, with the kind of storytelling Disney tells, this one story that's been in his head could work. And it was just interesting that of the stories we pitched, this is the one they picked, because personally I was hoping they would pick this one, simply because I live in Lagos, I've spent my whole life in Lagos. So I also wanted to be able to show people what Lagos was like.
No, I love that, because even like you said, the fiction, I'm glad it was like an actual African country, because again, like the use of Afrofuturism in this work, you still stay true to like Nigeria, like again, Nepa still the enemy of the story, like even I was like, oh damn, it's like reminding me of like the generator days and stuff like that, and even how you touch upon like the classism. So I would love to get more insight on that, how you stay true even in this future Nigeria to the real realities of Nigerian life.
So in terms of how we built this Iwájú future, if I'm to call it that, based on like Lagos, right? We wanted to draw inspiration from the unique things in Lagos and kind of amplify that. And one of the best ways to amplify something is taking it to the future, since those things technology is always growing. And then the second thing is, we also wanted the things to be very, very unique. I like that you mentioned the generator, right? So in Lagos, almost every place has a generator. Tolu was telling me this, right? And if you notice, the generators in our world, they're just a futurized version of those. And if you look at the people who use generators, maybe the generators are more common now in some areas, right? But the new tech that's now in Iwájú is not as common in the mainland, for example, which is a more underprivileged place. So we wanted to always draw inspiration from real life Lagos, evolve that's number one. And number two, create new things that we have not seen in any sci-fi world before. So an example would be like the accessibility of the paper-like screens, right? And you can see them everywhere. And they add to the element of just the way the colors and the life of Iwájú is like, and it's very unique to Iwájú.
This is essentially your return to Hollywood. I know you've worked in there before. So how is that like? Now you have ownership over your own narrative of like this very Nigerian-centric story. So what's that like?
It's a very interesting journey, since when I was living, when I was working in Hollywood film before, but it was more from the factory line, as I call it, because now you're the people you see in the credits. People don't know your name, really, just see yourself in the credits, right? From that level, and I worked on multiple shows. And one of the things that inspired me to move away from Hollywood itself was, I was like, I have this talent here, and back home, like I couldn't see something that was reaching those levels, and I wanted to create something of that level. So I was like, you know what, goodbye Hollywood. I didn't think I would see Hollywood again. Years comes, right back full circle, I'm back in Hollywood, but now it's with the story we want to tell in terms of the Iwájú story. I'm personally from Uganda, but I love that it's a story from Lagos still, right? I think it's always good to celebrate it as an African story, although it's a love letter to Lagos specifically, because a lot of people will try and also like add in their own stuff in there. We want it to be very real to what Lagos is, versus like an accumulation of different African cultures just slapped together to call it African. We want it to feel very specific, very real, as a love letter to Lagos.
On like the animation style, because there's so many like the market scene, I was feeling the busy atmosphere, even like Borde's character, like I was like, oh, very imposing. Mm-hmm. So how was that on the animation standpoint, creating that visual storytelling?
It's really important that we did right by what they were trying to do. And what my job as a visual effects supervisor was to bring what they wanted to create to a Disney level. We wanted it, because it's a collaboration between Kugali and Disney. So I knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to do right by people who live in Lagos, Nigeria. I wanted to do right by the people who live in that hat building with me, the 900 people who I've been working with for like 3 decades. I wanted them to look at it and be like, damn, you did all right, Marlon. And I wanted people around the world to actually see this world that we've created and be impressed by it. And, and it's a love letter to Lagos, but it's also, there's haves, there's have-nots in this world, there's crime in it. And we wanted it to be something that people could actually go on this journey and enjoy, all around the world.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for like my young nieces and nephews to kind of see this world and have that be their childhood. But yeah, Tolu, obviously I'm from BlackGirlGamers and I know that you're Kugali's resident gamer, so I feel like I have to ask, like, are we gonna get like an Iwájú game? I feel like, come on now. Like,
funny enough, yeah, an Iwájú game comes out on the same day as the show. It's called Rising Chef. Right?
Yes.
Iwájú Rising Chef. It's a cooking game. You notice we show a lot of food in the show. So we actually dialed back the food in the show from the original version of the script. You know how Yoruba people eat a lot of pepper. We actually had a scene where Tola and Bode are eating, and Bode cannot take the pepper, and Tola is like, give me more. And well, it was just fun and games. But the game is going to be a cooking game on Android and iOS. And it will just help us, the same way the show lets us show off Lagos, the game will let us show the culinary range in Nigeria. And obviously there'll still be some Western food, maybe a burger or something, but there's going to be a lot of amala, ewedu, jollof rice, plantain, and ewa and so on.
No, I love that because obviously I connect it to my culture through food. So I feel like this is the important question of the day. So like your go-to Nigerian street food, I feel like that's like, what's your go-to?
Plantain.
Plantain.
I feel like jollof rice just gets too much positive PR, where it's like it's nice. Jollof rice is
Slander.
nice, but plantain, fried dodo. So I don't know why plantain doesn't get enough hype.
I'm gonna be honest, I am team plantain. Not just that. I think in generally West African, I'm from East Africa. West African food, they put a lot more like hotter spices. East African food is more flavorful, in my perspective. I fight these guys on this. So plantain keeps it standard. It's still good. Plantain is always good. I've not had bad plantain anywhere yet. I think if somebody cooks it, it always comes out pretty good. So street food wise, I like the plantain.
Hey, I can't lie, I'm shocked. I'm shocked here. But
you thought it was going to be amala or something?
I'm an amala. I'm a suya.
Suya.
Come on, the range.
Yeah. Marlon, you have any?
I was introduced to Puff Puff on this show, and I gotta say, I'm a huge fan.
Puff Puff, yes.
I'm Puff Puff all the way. With the fact that we were able to nail the Puff Puff and all the other food on the show, because that was actually one of my concerns, that we would do justice by the food. That's not something somebody's going to watch the show and be like, oh wow, the food looks so tasty. But if we didn't do it right, people would be like, So
You did, because even after watching, I was like, oh,
I wanted people to be hungry afterwards.
this is great. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.